This is not investment advice, a podcast where real founders and investors share what it actually takes to build a company. Fahad Hassan has started 4 companies over 2 decades. Frank Rotman spent 32 years building Capital One, co-founding QED Investors, and backing hundreds of startups. Now they're here to give you the unfiltered truth about raising capital, scaling businesses, and surviving the startup journey.
So what do you want to talk about today? I think last week we had a bunch of stuff going on with regards to our first topic and got some really, really interesting feedback from colleagues and friends that listen to us. So like, what's on your mind this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal, at least when you and I talked, was to give real feedback on, things that other people might be glossing over, from the perspective of someone who's been around the block a few times. I mean, you've founded 4 different companies, and I've had a variety of roles from building to investing in companies. So, peeling the onion and kind of giving some advice that might be a bit more real than they're hearing somewhere else. So I thought today might be interesting to talk about some generic advice that I think a lot of founders are getting or they hear out on Twitter, and get your take about how much of it you believe is real and how much of it you believe is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, sounds good. What fire away, man. What's on your mind?
So let's start with the first one. And the first one you hear everywhere, which is if you never quit, you'll never lose.
If you never quit, you'll never lose. Yeah, I actually saw a clip of that was kind of going viral with Seth Rogen saying that. I don't know if you saw the same one where he's like, if you don't quit, you might make it. But if you quit, you definitely won't. I think what you're getting at more is like, if something doesn't work, you got to move on, right? Is that kind of where you're getting at?
Well, this is advice that you hear from people where, some founders just keep banging their head against a wall when the idea isn't working. They've run the experiment and the experiment is coming up with, bad news, like the thesis that they had isn't working or the team they assembled wasn't the right team. But they hear this advice all the time on Twitter and in other channels that just don't quit. And, there is a time to quit. And I'd love to talk just a little bit from a founder's perspective about when do you know, like, enough is enough? When do you actually quit? When is it bad advice to just keep trying?
Yeah, just quit, right? Instead of just do it. That's a really, really good question. It's a very, very hard thing to want to quit or have to quit. And I can share the story of my second startup. It's called Always Prepped. It was backed by True Ventures and a bunch of other investors. This is 2010. And we were building data dashboards for school districts, basically like Tableau for teachers, parents, administrators to better understand student data better. It's like between the years of 2010 and 2014. So 15 years ago, 16 years ago now, a long time ago. Internet was less mature, and I had raised some money and we had a good product, we had a good idea, but selling to schools like kindergarten through 12th grade and school districts is really hard. And by the way, I'll say this publicly because I say this privately all the time now, don't invest in ed tech. It's a horrible category to invest in. We can come back to that if you want in a second. I don't know if you've actually made any ed tech investments, but I lived that world for 10 years. And I want to say late 2014, we had raised several $1 million by then. It was a small company. I never got it past 20 employees max at any given point. And we just kept raising bridge after bridge, 500K, $1 million, 500K. And you've been there, right? I'm sure with some of your companies. And I did that for about a year and a half. And I felt so guilty that I was going to let all these people down, especially you're a poker player, right? So like you feel more pot committed and you don't want to give up and you don't want to get out. And it is the most agonizing feeling in the world, especially as a founder, especially when you're 25 years old, you're scared, honestly. You're like, wow, I took all this money and I don't think we should do this anymore, but like I have to keep trying. And ultimately, the hardest, I would say, thing I've ever done in my career was it was December of 2014, right around Christmas time. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's not going to work. It's not going to, like, I have to stop raising more capital, shut down the company and move on. And I was deathly afraid of quitting and deathly afraid of calling all my angel investors, even folks that gave me $25,000 and $50,000. You feel embarrassed. It's very embarrassing because you poured your heart and soul into something. And I'll finish my point here by saying I did that. And then 6 months later, I found a little company in Seattle called Convoy and went on the ride of my life, right? Changed my life forever. And within 6 months of that, all had been moved on. And I will say, every single person, I was a little old school, and I called every angel investor that gave me even a $5,000 check for that company. And I basically was like, I failed. I didn't make it. I'm sorry. And it was very humbling. And what I learned in that process, though, was how kind everyone was. It was the first time everyone was like, it's okay. This is a venture investment. It's a big bet. You worked your tail off 20 hours a day for 4 years. We saw it. Go do the next thing. And what was shocking was how many people said, what are you doing next? I want to back you again.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I'll pause there, but that was my experience of quitting and my life changing after I did, actually.
Yeah, and there are a lot of forms of quitting, and there are a lot of reasons for quitting. But the good reason is if you really did give it the best try, you were respectful of all the people who were around you.
Yeah.
And then it just didn't work. And, getting over your identity issues, getting over the fact that, you think that the public is actually watching you, which, by the way, they're not.
Yeah.
You think they are. And it's like, there's this overhang where you're like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. And then everyone in the world is going to know I failed.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to talk to some people, and you're going to have to get over it. And there are people you're going to disappoint. But to your point, 3 months, 6 months later, they're just wondering what you're working on next. Right?
Have you ever told a founder to quit?
I have.
That you backed?
I actually had to. That? Yeah. So there was a company that was in a highly regulated industry. I don't want to talk too much in case people want to try to diagnose who this person is, but it was in a highly regulated industry. And, they were on the second or third incarnation of their company because every time that they tried to get regulatory approval to do the thing that they were doing, they would get really close, and then someone would say, no, I don't think you can do this. By the time you're on your third incarnation, you're like, wow, we burned through a lot of money. This might be a really good idea, but let's actually talk about what you're building and why you're building it. And it ends up that it was a really good idea, but going with partnering with someone who had the licenses and the approval to do things was a way for that person to actually achieve the mission and kind of rebadge the team that still wanted to fight. Without having to fight the battles of trying to get another regulatory approval, which would have been another 15 months, 18 months, long periods of time. And it was hard. It was really hard for the founder to really internalize, I tried a couple times. I tried really hard. It didn't work. If I try again, I'm just going to run out of capital.
Yeah.
And so while he still had capital, finding a partner, finding out how to rehome all of the people, and he did. Right? I mean, we lost money, but that's fine. He ended up in a different place for a while, and we'll see what he does next. So we've given a couple examples, but when do you know it's time to quit?
Yeah. There isn't a moment. And that's the hardest part about it. It's very gradual, and then it's very sudden is my learning. So it's not like you wake up one day and all of a sudden you're like, I shouldn't do this anymore, right? And you get signals along the way, and I would say those signals start to pick up more and more, right? Customers don't react the way you want them to react. Investors are less likely to give you more money. Employees start to quit. The product innovation isn't showing up the way you had originally hoped. It's not matching your original vision. And so there's never a moment. And that's why it's so hard to advise other founders who are probably stuck in this moment. Honestly, I would say the majority of founders are usually in this moment and stuck in this than they are in the next step, right? Because most companies fail. There isn't a moment and you just gotta you gotta take it by the horns and say, I'm out. I'm doing the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I agree with you that it is gradual. But I've had this observation helping hundreds of companies, most of which fail, to your point. It's not like most of them are up and to the right and they succeed and this is the exception. This is the norm. What I've observed is that founders will die on the sword, and dying on the sword means having $0 in the bank. Like, they will keep trying, because being an entrepreneur, you always have another idea. Right?
Yeah.
You always have, you're a problem solver. Like, every day you're there trying to figure things out. But what I've observed is that founders start with their best ideas, and then after a while they get to their mediocre ideas, and then eventually, like, they are literally pulling, the bottom of the barrel out, and they're like, well, I'm supposed to keep trying. I will keep coming up with ideas, but not good ideas. And
but there's counterexamples too, right? And I think that's where this gets really confusing. So I remember going to a founder summit with one of our investors, Gradient, probably like 2 years ago. And the keynote speaker was the founder and CEO of Notion. Very popular app, $10-20 billion company now probably. And he talked about the journey of how they basically almost gave up. Everyone gave up on them. He went to Japan to go find himself. And that's when he discovered like what he wanted to do with Notion. Like, so in that moment, I think people are wondering like, well, if he quit, there'd be no Notion, right? But how are you convicted to keep going versus not? That's a really hard question, because the iconic stories in the world, even Elon with Tesla, right? He was down to like hours before he ran out of money. He didn't quit, right? So I think that's the counterpoint I think people will ask is, well, how do you know, right? It's very hard.
Again, I think there are founders who still have good ideas that they want to try, and there are founders that they just keep trying because they think that's their job. And again, an example, I had a founder I was working with where, the growth had slowed when the company was at 20 to 30 million in revenue, like in that range. And like, if you're down to 30% growth rate at 20 to 30 million of revenue, you kind of know where the company is going. Like, it's not going to be an S1 public company. It just will never.
That's fascinating. So 30% growth is no good at 30 million bucks.
No, I mean, not to get to an IPO, right? Like, you're going to have to land the plane. It's probably going to be a strategic acquisition. Like, it's not a failure, but you kind of know it's not on a path to get to a public company. And it was still burning cash. And I was talking to the founder and I said, do you have any ideas for how to turn up growth again? Like, we've tried for the past couple of years and we just couldn't turn up growth. And he said, yeah, I have ideas. And I said, are they good ideas? And he said, no, I used up all my good ideas. Like, I have ideas where if you gave me money, I would try. And I said, well, if they're not good ideas, let's figure out how to turn the company profitable at its current level of scale, buy optionality, and then we'll have plenty of time to figure things out, which is a different form of quitting. Like, it's acknowledging that you're not going to be a public company, and you're acknowledging that the fate is going to be to sell the company for something less than you imagine. Like, for some founders, that's failure and quitting. But it was acknowledging reality. And I think that's the key, is acknowledging reality. And it's hard because, founders exist in this like distortion field. They're always trying to build something that's really hard.
It's also hard because if it's the first time you're a founder, you don't know what is success and what is failure, right? So like navigating quitting or staying the course is incredibly difficult when you've never been on the path before. You've never been on the arena before. How do you like lay down your sword and move on, right? I really don't think there's a black and white answer. I think the only black and white answer, honestly, is your gut. I actually recently helped a friend. She's a former employee of ours and phenomenal. She's very smart. She was at Range for a couple of years. She left to go start a company. I was like, awesome. I'll help you however I can. And the more I talked to her, the more I could tell that she was realizing how hard it was to execute on her original vision. But she never said the words out loud that she knew she needed to stop. And then once I said it out loud to her, I said, hey, it's okay. Like, you did this for 6 months. You did this for a year. I saw how hard you worked. Just go to the next thing. And as soon as I said it, she was like, I agree with you. But she wouldn't say it first. And I thought that was really, really fascinating that she needed just a little nudge. She was looking for someone to tell her it was okay before she moved on.
Let's move on to another question.
Yeah, go for it.
So another piece of advice that I hear all the time in markets, and again, there are two sides to this, which I think a lot of these questions are going to be fun because of that, build in a boring, unsexy market with big TAM because revenue exists and greenfield opportunities are for suckers.
Okay. What, I mean, are you asking my take on that, or do you have a
That's
take
right.
on that?
Yeah, I'm asking you your take.
I don't think it matters. I really don't think about any of that stuff. Like when a founder starts a company, like I know venture capitalists and private equity investors want founders to approach a problem with how big is the market opportunity, how much money can we make, can this have venture returns? The truth is, I would say the 99% of companies are started by people who see a problem and they're like, I'm just going to solve this. And I think I can make money doing it. And if you can do that, then everything else starts to kick in, right? Once you've made your first dollar, your first $100,000, 100,000, if you get that far, then all of a sudden it becomes like, wow, I can scale this thing perhaps, right? And the TAM matters. Is it in a sexy industry? Is it in an unsexy industry? I don't know. I didn't think about any of that, honestly. The first time I started a company, the second time I started a company. With range, it was very obvious. Financial services is a very, very large, slow moving industry. So like I didn't have to think about it really because everyone agrees that it's a slow, old school industry. But in reality, like I just wanted to solve problems. I want to solve problems for myself or friends who had companies. I never thought about this stuff. And I don't know if that's good or bad. But yeah, what's your take on that? Like as an investor, I'm sure you're looking for an entrepreneur to have done this analysis, but do you care, honestly?
So my personal take is say choose your hard, right? So greenfield markets have a different hard than markets that already exist. So going into it eyes wide open is really important because what it takes to crack something that's greenfield versus something where there's known revenue sources, known customers already buying products, just a different set of challenges. And unfortunately, I think in the VC ecosystem, you're going to have to approach the right VCs if you're going to raise VC capital who like either greenfield or like existing markets. Like you have to think about this when you're raising, because if you're describing a new market with all sorts of unknowns and you have to change consumer behavior or buying behavior, like that's the hard that you're choosing, right? And you believe that you have a view of the future and a product that you can build, that actually aligns with, something brand new. And you've got to find an investor that's willing to go on that journey. And unfortunately, like in today's world, there are some investors that say they're non-consensus and they say that they like these things, but they're not, right? They worry about who's going to write the next check. They worry if you're going to be able to de-risk a greenfield business fast enough, to attract capital. And the beauty of these other markets, where they already exist, is it's about saying, can I build something better and can I find distribution to get in front of customers who are already buying product, right? And can I do it better? Can I convince them I can do it better or cheaper or whatever the value proposition is?
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit easier to underwrite, from a VC standpoint. So you have access to a lot more people and capital. But it's a different hard because now you're fighting against incumbents. It's a known problem. Like it's sometimes like margins suffer before you even start because you're competing against at scale players. But I think of it as a choose your own hard.
Yeah, I love that. It's all hard. I think that's what people need to realize. Whether you go down the VC route, capital raise route, do it yourself. The one thing I can share as a founder that I've made mistakes on is I've optimized for fundraising sometimes in my career, and I've optimized to please the investor because I knew I'd always need capital to build what I wanted. And those were some of the worst decisions I've ever made. Like, I wish if I could go back 20 years, I would just build exactly what was in my mind. And if it worked, great. If it didn't, it didn't. I would move on with my day. And I want to tell everyone that. Do not optimize for anyone else because you have to live it, eat it, breathe it every single day. And even if someone gives you money, they're not doing it like you are. And so you got to love what you do and you have to like be completely convicted. Do exactly what you want. That is my advice to founders. Do exactly what you want. Ignore everything else. And if what you do ends up working out, the rest of it will take care of itself or you will figure it out. But if you start like building a company to please other people or investors or whatever, like that never works well. I've never seen that work well. I've seen founders lose interest. I've seen it'd be really difficult to recruit employees because they don't see the conviction in you. That's probably been the biggest mistake I've made in my career. Is like there were a few times where I really optimized for like mentors and advice I was getting, even if in my gut I knew it was the wrong thing. You got to just trust your gut. I know it sounds really corny. It sounds really dumb, but like, it's true. You got to trust your gut. And the older I get, the more I trust my gut, because I'm like, I know how bad it can get. I don't really care. Like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, like, then it's on me. It's not on someone else. Far away. What's your next thought?
Yeah. So let's actually talk about managing people a little bit. So the general advice that's out there, you hear it all the time, is fire your lowest performers instantly with no performance theater.
Man, this is a really meaty topic, especially given that it's the end of the year and everyone probably watching this is going through some kind of review cycle, right? Myself included. And my co-founder, our board is going to look at our comp for the year and for next year and give us targets. Like, I think people also forget, just because you start a company doesn't mean you're in charge of your comp. If you get to a certain scale, you're not. I'm an operator, and everyone who knows me deeply knows that. And so managing people, hiring people is everything to me. And I think that's how you achieve success or achieve failure. And so we definitely fire people at range. It happens all the time. And I think that's an unusual thing for a founder to say publicly. Do I like doing it? Absolutely not. I'm actually the last one. And most people that get let go do not know that, because from an HR perspective, you have to let other people handle it, etc. It feels like quitting. Let me explain why. You put so much into the hiring process, the recruiting process. And it's a process I'm proud of that we've built here. I've built at other companies. And you don't want to admit to yourself you got it wrong. And I don't think no one approaches firing people in that way, but I do. Like, I hate letting people go. But once that decision has been made, I remind myself it's absolutely not personal. It's professional. And I've actually been reprimanded by our attorneys, because I'm the guy that calls people that have been fired and I'm like, I will give you a reference. I will help you out. What do you need? And they're like, please stop doing this. Like, you are putting yourself in an HR nightmare hole, legal hole. I'm like, I want to be human though. I want people to know that it wasn't personal. And they're like, why do you care about, it sounds like, Fahad, you want to be liked. And that's a good call out. I didn't think about it like that. I truly just want to help people in those situations. But it's hard, especially now we're almost 100 people here. Like, people are going to come, they're going to go. Some people will quit. I don't know if hiring fast or slow matter. No, that's not true. It's like conviction when you're building a company and on your idea. If you're a good manager, if you're an experienced manager, you know very quickly if someone's going to work out or not. It's just, you've seen the pattern so many times. You don't need a pip. You don't need months of feedback. You see enough where you're like, that's not going to work. I got to move on. And at the same time, you need to follow the rules of, labor laws and regulations, and be respectful to the human being and give them severance and all that, which I think we do a phenomenal job of here. We've really mirrored it off of Netflix in many ways. But it's hard. It's very personal. It's very hard. And I've got a lot of stories around this topic and over the years, and it's probably the number one topic I talk to other CEOs about.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's a very complex topic, but the more experience you become as a manager, the more you realize that this is part of your job, right? You put the people on the field and you assign responsibilities to them. You create the org chart, you set the goals. And, when you're young as a company, I mean, even as you get, more mature as a company, but when you're young as a company, like, you have to get to yes every day with every part of the company. You have to be achieving results like every day, because you're burning cash. And if you have people sitting in critical roles that like aren't performing, and you think that if you hired a TBD, you could do better, you kind of know the answer. And again, there's a human way of doing it, and it's so critical to do this well. And what I would say is, look, if you spend more time than you would expect recruiting, and spend more time with the candidate before you end up hiring them, it gives you the best chance of actually not making a mistake, but you're still going to make mistakes. Like no matter how good you are as like an executive, if you hire an entire executive team over a 3-year period, there are going to be 1 or 2 of them that don't work out of a 7-person team. Like that's just normal. And if you talk about junior roles where it's harder to get references and figure out if they're good at whatever it is that you're assigning them to do, the failure rate's even higher, right? So it's just part of business. And unfortunately, like you need people sitting in roles that perform. And one of the things that made me comfortable with firing a little bit earlier, a little bit faster once you know the answer, is that I started to realize that the people know that they're failing by and large. And when they do, they're actually not that happy. Like people like succeeding.
That's a really good point.
Right? They want to be somewhere where they're rewarded for success. They're doing good work. They feel like they went in, at the beginning of the day and left and people were happy with what they did. And people who are failing, like they kind of know it. And helping them move on is actually a respectful thing for them and for the company.
Well, you have an interesting seat, given what you've done the last roughly 20 years. Can you talk at all about firing a CEO? What that's like? Have you fired any CEOs?
Yes.
Give us an example. I mean, it's probably public. I mean, what happened?
Well, I'm not going to say who, but I remember.
Give us a yearly time frame. Maybe
that's
we can
right.
Look it up on LinkedIn.
I remember this one very distinctly. Like we were having problems with the founder, a lot of problems within the company, and the founder just didn't quite have the skill set to navigate the things that the company needed to navigate. Wonderful person. I like him immensely, like as a person. Like this was not misbehaving in any way. This was not like that type of shenanigan stuff. This was just the company had grown to a point where the founder was really struggling to handle like some of the key issues that the company needed to get through. Some of them were regular.
Like what?
Some of them were facing off against regulators the right way, and some of them were like configuring the company the right way and understanding like how to navigate a very complex world. And after a while, it just became time.
Yeah,
it was just it was time. We needed to put someone else in that seat, and the board decided that I was the one who was going to be the one to tell the founder. And I flew out, to actually see them live. Like this is not something that you actually do.
Did they know that this was the conversation you were flying out for, or did they have no idea?
They knew I was flying out to talk to them.
And it was not going to be a good conversation.
Yeah. So they weren't sure exactly what the conversation was, but they knew I was specifically getting on a plane to come out to see them, to have like the tough conversation coming out of a board meeting.
Yeah.
And it was hard, right? I'll be perfectly honest. Like, it was hard on me. It was hard on them. Delivering that message is never easy. There were tears involved, and like, that's actually normal. That's human. Like this is something that the person had worked on for a number of years, and they just felt like they failed, and, it was one of those things where they needed time to actually internalize it. They had to deal with it. They had to move on from it. They had to figure out how to tell other people about it. Like there's a whole narrative that you have to create as like part of this whole process. And, it was time. And unfortunately, like these situations are more frequent than people would think. And in the founder role in particular, they don't happen as often as they should, right? Because it's incredibly hard to take like the heart and soul of a company and say, like, they invented this. We are all here because of this person. Like we would not be here in this situation if it weren't for this person, good and bad, right? We assembled people, we assembled capital, we now have customers, and it's all because of this person. But by the way, this person is not in the right role, right? They are not doing a job that is building this company the way it should.
So this is a fascinating topic because I don't think most people understand or ever think about a founder getting fired from their own company. I think that's actually a really unusual thing for a lot of people, but you're right, it does happen. Can you talk a little bit more about the mechanics of it? So you fly out there, you get into a conference room, it's a one-on-one conversation. How long does the conversation last? And like, are they escorted out of the building? Do you give them a month? Do you let them tell the team? Like, those are critical. How big was the company? Was it 10 people? Is it 100 people? I'm just curious.
So,
like, how do you handle the legal? Because there's a legality to it. There's a fiduciary aspect to all this as well. It's not just a conversation, because you don't know if the person is going to go ape shit, right? You have no idea. So how did you, like, can you walk us through, like, what happened?
So every situation is different, right? This is such a unique thing. You have to know the person. To your point, like, there are people who, if you're firing them because they don't think they've done anything wrong, or there's a battle between like investors and common shareholders, with the founder being like the main common shareholder, like, that's a very different situation, where the board is trying to get the votes to actually unseat someone, and you're not sure you have the votes, and you're trying to wrest control of the company away. And those situations happen when there's something to protect, right? Like, you have a big company, you've built a big company, a lot of capital has gone into it, and the investors feel like it is heading to zero if they maintain the course, and that the founder is incapable of actually navigating the situation, and that even with all the chaos, it is better to put someone else in that seat. Because, by the way, like, putting someone else in that seat is super hard.
Yeah.
Investors don't want to do it. You don't do it unless it is the only thing that you can do in order to save the company, right? So it's not like you're looking and saying, yeah, they're okay, maybe I'll replace them. Like, it is, you believe this thing that a lot of money has gone into, there are a lot of customers, like, there actually is something to protect, right? That's when you actually have the conversation about replacing a founder, right?
Well, but go back to, like, the mechanics of the day. Like, what happened? How did it play out? And I'm curious, what happened to the company? Did they make it? What happened to the founder? Did he start another company? I mean, these are all the questions going through my mind.
This one, it's a little bit different. I actually met with the founder in a public location, not on site.
Okay.
Because doing that on site has its own implications.
Yep.
Right? The person's going to be upset.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to be upset, like, in front of peers and walking out of the building, or trying to sneak your way out of the building so that you can find your own spot to kind of decompress from this, that's actually pretty hard. Right. So maybe I did it right. Maybe I did it wrong. Like, I don't know. Like, you never actually know. You get one shot at doing it. You can't play it out a couple ways. But I did it in a public setting. But a public setting, I mean, we were quiet. We weren't making noise. He was not a problematic person. He was super nice. He was just upset.
Yeah.
Right. He was internalizing that the company that he had built was not going to be his company starting the next day.
Yeah.
And there was someone within the company that we were putting into an interim role, to basically take over while we figured out, like, the more permanent answer. And there was a lot of processing to do. I wanted to be there as the shoulder for him to cry on. And, like, again, there's nothing embarrassing about that. Like, that tells you he cared.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you get that emotional, it's because you care. And
it's hard. I've been in a lot of those conversations with employees, with managers, leaders. It's very, very hard. It's very personal. I think people forget that too. It's not like we like to say it's just business. It is, and it isn't. Right? We're human beings at the end of the day, and it is very, very difficult. One thing I'm thinking about while you're sharing this, and I think a lot about this with, I guess, our employees sometimes too. Joining a startup is very different than joining a, let's say, big company or corporation. And I don't think people give that enough thinking as they should. So we're talking about letting people go, or people really, let's just focus on firing and not quitting, because those are very different things. I'm surprised by how surprised they are, because I've heard many times, like, I have a family. Oh my gosh, my paycheck is gone all of a sudden. And that's all true. That's when I kind of actually lose sympathy, because I'm like, why did you join a startup if you need a paycheck? Like, if you need just a job, do not do a startup. This is a big disclaimer to everyone listening. Like, if you're cash strapped, you need a job, startup is not the place to go, especially a high growth startup with a badass team, where they're going to say, look, if you're not cutting it, you're out of here. And people are, I'm surprised by how many people treat, you know, even this company like just a job that they expect to have to pay their bills. I'm like, this is so self-selecting. Don't do this. There's insane levels of risk. Forget like getting fired. There's risks that the company might not make it, right? Every startup, right? And so that part is something I've thought a lot about this year in certain conversations. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe you thought about it like this. You know, this is not a job at Amazon or Microsoft or IBM. Let's use the old stodgy business where like your paycheck is protected and you're fine for years and blah blah blah.
Yeah. You asked the question about how the founder did afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the company didn't ultimately make it, and that's what happens a lot of times when there's this type of chaos. You don't always figure out how to like work your way through it. But the founder has started another company that is doing extraordinarily well. Like, I love the fact that like he just picked himself up and he found the next thing to work on. It's doing extremely well, and investors are giving him money, and like that's great. And it's a different company. It is doing a very different type of thing. But there are times when like a founder figures it out, and they find their home and they have another idea, and it's the right idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. You made a really good point there, I think, for folks that are like, wow, if I get fired, am I ever going to get funded again? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you've got a great idea, great conviction, and you've learned you've got humility around it, people will back you. There's tons of money everywhere. Like, don't get scared, right? And I think a lot of people are like, if I fail once, it's over. That is absolutely not the case. In fact, you're a better bet the next time.
Yeah.
Whether you quit or get fired or whatever. I mean, as an investor, I'd be like, great, multi-time founder de-risks a lot of early stage problems, no matter how you exit it, right?
So while we're talking about people, let's tackle one more topic here.
Yeah.
It is common belief, especially in San Francisco and New York up until recently, that the whole goal of a founder was to find a team that the only thing they cared about was equity and not cash. And it was to be cash light, equity heavy, and find the team that only cared about like making the money if the company ended up succeeding and their equity was worth a fortune. They were valuing that equity immensely. Now, things might have changed recently with the AI wave and like overpaying people to do certain types of jobs because they're in incredible demand.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the idea of cash light, equity heavy, find the team that is valuing that equity and like use almost being cash light as a test, to find the people who want to be around?
I completely believe in it. I think if you're looking for people that want a fat paycheck and a little bit of equity early on, they're the wrong people. They're the old saying, right? They're mercenaries, not missionaries. So I completely believe that if you don't have an early team, let's say the first 20 people in a company that aren't betting heavily on the equity, they're the wrong teammate. And if you want to make a lot of cash, go get a job that pays you a lot of cash. It's not that hard, right? Like, I don't know why you're trying to, because people want their cake and want to eat it too, if you will, right? So I'll tell you something really unique we do at Range. I don't know any other company that does this. We did this at Convoy. This is where I kind of learned it from Dan Lewis, founder and CEO, and how they made offers. So my offer at Convoy was presented to me the same way, April of 2015. So almost 11 years ago now. And we do it the same way here. And I don't know any other company that does it. We actually give every new employee 3 offers. We don't give them 1. And we give you the high cash, low equity, medium cash, medium equity, and low cash, high cash, low equity, whatever the opposite is. So you get a pick. And I promise you, and I'm still one of the CEOs, I like signing the offer letter every single time. It means something to me. So I see every single offer that comes through now for almost 100 people. Well, more than 100 people because we've let some people go over the years. But it always fascinates me who picked the highest cash and lowest equity. I see it every single week. And every time someone picks the lowest equity, a little part of me dies. Even though we're 100 people now in a 5-year-old company, I'm like, why did you do this? Like, that $10,000 is going to be completely meaningless to you if this thing works out or if it fails in your personal life. Post taxes, by the way, it's nothing, right? But that extra incremental 10, 20, 30,000 shares you're giving up for that 10 grand this year, that could change your life on IPO day. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, don't do this. And I'll tell you a really fun story. We've had some employees who have like younger ones who like figured this out after they joined. I've had many employees call me, email me and say, hey, after they've gotten into the company to see how the sausage is being made.
Can I give it back?
Yeah. And we've done that. I had one person say, I want to cut my salary in half and I want the rest in equity. I was like, damn, I love that conviction. I was like, I'm not going to do that because it messes up other things in the back end. Like, I don't want you making 50 grand a year. You've got a wife and kids to support. And you're not thinking about like other things I know that are going to be problematic. I love the conviction. But we've reduced salary for some people by $50,000 a year once they're like, holy shit, this thing is, I understand now how the math is working. And I love that. So yeah, I'm a big equity heavy bettor. And if you don't do that, like, do I not hire you? Absolutely not. Like, everyone's different. And at a certain point, you're not hiring these heavy equity people, right? Especially at 100 people, right? You got to be closer to market rates to get good people. And that's fine, right? They didn't take day one risk. They're not going to get day one reward, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that I would say, and I'm actually very conscious of this, having seen so many companies and so many things go wrong. You have to hire people that for the salaries that you're hiring them, they're not looking over their shoulder, figuring out how to pay their bills.
Right.
Right. Like, if it ends up that you have to pay someone more than your company would normally pay that person, or you're in this world of being cash poor but equity rich, and you know their personal situation and it doesn't fit, then they aren't a fit. Because what'll happen is they won't do the best work.
Right.
They'll have pressure from home, and it happens all the time. Like, this is normal. People who have families, like, they have someone else or multiple people that they have to take care of. And if you're looking over your shoulder, wondering how you're going to pay your bills, like, that pressure actually makes them maybe make bad decisions. So I think
should they do startups then? That's the real question.
That's right.
Like, why bother doing startups? Is that why 22-year-olds are a great bet for startups?
We had one company where, and this goes back to 2012. So you've got to put it in perspective. Dollars are different in 2012 than they are today.
Yeah.
But there's no one in the company, top to bottom, that made more than $80,000 a year.
Wow.
And the founder said, look, for the first 2 years, I'm going to do this. I'm going to find a team that can afford to do this, right? These aren't going to be people who are looking over their shoulder and wondering how they're going to pay their bills. I want more equity for, all of these early employees, because if I can bridge this first 2 years with this team, it's my ride or die team.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to him at about 18 months in or something. The company was doing well. And I said, it's time to fix this. Like, you can't keep doing this. Like, This is not normal. And he's like, we did what we needed to. We made a point. Everyone values the equity in the company. They have more equity than they would have otherwise. And when we raised the next round of capital, which went from seed to Series A, like, at that point, we just normalized. Part of the use of proceeds was normalizing people. And he was very thoughtful about it. But, he was a hunter for the people. He was on the hunt for his ride or die team. And, like, his way of doing it was, this statement out to the world, and it worked.
So a lot of the old school companies in the Valley and just in the world, right, where when you bet entirely on equity and you take just what you need from a salary perspective to survive, forget 80K. My first company, I only took money every 2 weeks that I needed to live, because I thought that's how you did it. Like, a lot of people don't know that the first 2 years, I didn't know I could pay myself a salary. I remember my investor called me one day. He's like, what are you paying yourself? I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, do you have a salary? I was like, no, I pay myself enough to pay for my student loans and my car. And, like, I live with my parents. That's what I did. I didn't know any better. And he was like, you can take a salary, dude. I was like, what? And I didn't know. And that, because I was so, like, focused on making sure the company dollars were not spent on a dime more than what it needs to be. Now, here's the other here's the other take that kind of drives me nuts sometimes is like, well, there's a lot of takes that drive me nuts on the salary component at times. But people who want all equity too, I actually don't think they're a good bet either. I think there's something wrong there. And actually, let me take that back. So here's what I'm thinking about. These old school Silicon Valley companies, like when people join them, like let's just use Wozniak and Jobs, right? Very iconic story, right? They started Apple and they just were so deeply convicted in building a personal computer. It meant everything to them, right? I look around at all these companies that are being backed by VCs and people are starting. Why should you have conviction in like the millionth ad tech platform, the millionth website, right? It doesn't feel the same. Does that make sense? I'm like, I want a salary because I'm like, this is not the same thing as trying to change the world with computing technology where I'm going to like live, eat, sleep, breathe this because I believe in it so much. Like most companies I observe that are being started today, I can't get that level of conviction around it. I'm like, it feels like a nice little feature addition to something that already exists. This isn't transformative. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
What I'm saying, right?
I might disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
And it's a salary serves a purpose, right? And if you're taking it just for the sake of you think you deserve it because you should take a salary because you could take a salary, but if it's not serving a purpose, then it's extracting capital from the company that is serving a purpose, right?
Yep.
So when I think of compensation, like there's a reason for every component of compensation, and it should be aligned to accomplish what you want to accomplish, right? Salaries accomplish people being able to sleep well at night and do the things with their families that they need to do. You know, equity is about aligning people around building a great company that, stands the test of time and gets bigger and better over time. And they share in like the value creation there. But if you're pulling down a salary because you say, well, CEOs pull down salaries and I should pull down a salary, like, look, if you're wealthy and that salary is rounding error to you, but to the company it matters, then that's the wrong decision, right? So I always like just aligning incentives and making sure that things accomplish what they're supposed to accomplish.
Yeah. At what point do you feel like salaries should be normalized? Like Series B, C, D? Like if we're going to go compete for AI engineers against OpenAI and Anthropic, right? Like I got to pay people because, should I be paying market rates now or is it another year? Or do you think it like varies?
It's about accomplishing a goal, right? Like if you can hire the talent with equity and save on the cash, and the cash is essential to the company, like that's one comp strategy, right? And if you feel like you're winning the best talent in the talent war, like it's working. If it ends up that the talent is valuing cash over equity because they're hopping companies every couple of years and they feel like their solution is that the equity is a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
And the way that they're actually amassing wealth is through cash. Like if that is the labor market, like you might need to raise more money and your investors might need to give you more money for the use of proceeds to go hire more talent.
Yeah. So what you're saying is do what you got to do to win.
Yeah. Again, every component is supposed to serve a purpose and like just try to win with the equity and with the cash and how you assemble things.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on time here, man. This is a really, really fun conversation again this week. Just so many topics. I mean, we could just keep talking and talking and talking, but this is really cool. So until I guess next week or when we decide to record again, we'll keep it going.
Yeah, we'll keep doing this.
Thanks for making time.
Feel free to drop comments if there are topics you as audience listeners want us to talk about. Like, just drop them. We'll try to figure out how to keep this interesting.